They're not teaching what the feminine and the masculine means. In the beginning, God sparks a mind. That's the word. Let there be light. Well, what is darkness but unknowing? Light is having a mind to understand. You even exist. I am. That is the word. From the beginning, the mind of this all-good spirit, that is the Christ, the first begotten Son. That is the all of the law and the prophets. We are going to find out that this mind that created us blameless and in love is all good. And if we love it, then we simply make that unseen good seen and don't do to others things we don't want done to ourselves. When this unseen spirit sparks this mind, the I am, because prior to that, you just have this unseen substance, the waves, amidst the nothingness. Well, that's life, that's motion. That is the Spirit of God amidst this nothingness. And it shall have mind. And it does, and it sparks that mind, the mind of this all-good spirit. Well, the Adam and the Eve, once this spirit has mind, it shall realize, and it's informing us in Genesis, that it is both male and female. But it's not about literal males and females. It's about the masculine and feminine nature. The masculine nature is the creator nature, which is why God is called a he and the Christ is called a he. This is not a sexist thing. The creator nature is what builds our desires, which is the feminine. The feminine is the passive nature within us, our desires, our heart, right? Circumcision of the heart. That we circumcise desires that want to step off this one good way to do harm. So the feminine is our desires. It is from the feminine, our good desires, the Virgin Mary desires, that births the Christ creations through that masculine nature, our creator nature. You can have all the good desires to birth Christ creations into the world doing the good, but they mean nothing if you do not give them life, create them. That is why the masculine nature, the creator nature, will always supersede the desire. Your desires have no life. They are meaningless. They are within you and unseen until you give them life. This is why the Christ is called a he and God is called a he. We conduct our lives by the creator nature. So, the Adam and Eve in the beginning with the tree of the knowledge of good and of evil. Well, heck, how can you know that which is good if you don't know that which is not good? We are to know that which is the good versus that which is not the good, so that we know how to build the safety and peace and determine what isn't good. We just want to know the difference and live one way and not the other. It is the desire of God that we shall have this knowing, that God himself, the mind of God, shall have this knowing. Because in the beginning, the mind of God only knows it exists, and that there's this temptation around it, this nothingness that's coiled all around it. Think of that Spirit of God, that I am, as a brain tree. And coiled all around it is this nothingness. And this somethingness of the Spirit knows that there's this other thing, but how shall that somethingness have its own self-definition, know what it is, if it does not know that which it is not? When Eve takes of the fruit, that's telling us that's the desire of God's mind, the all-good desire. We want to know that which we don't know. So Eve is not responsible for all the troubles of the world. That's just desire. She's handing that fruit over to the Adam, which is the creator nature. That Eve, that's just desire. You're desiring that you shall have this knowledge, to know the difference, to know your own identity, that which you don't know, to know more of yourself and why you are here, what this is all about. As on earth as it is in heaven. We humans are not born with all-knowing. There is going to be a time of development where we are going to realize at some point that we have self-identity, body, mind, and soul. The outer court, inner court, and holy of holies. As explained in my video, Jesus died why? This is the temple. It's only when Eve passes that fruit over to Adam, and Adam eats of it, that the desire is actualized, and they see their nakedness, which is not about being literally naked. They are just no longer under the covering of that oneness of God, that you're in that estate of just that unknowing in the beginning. I am. No, now you've gone out, but your nakedness means that you're vulnerable. Doesn't mean that you're evil. So they see their nakedness, meaning they are vulnerable. That's their nakedness. They're vulnerable because they're no longer under that covering of initial oneness of this estate of God in the beginning, of perfection, of unknowing, just the knowing of I am. So they see their vulnerability, which means that they're no longer under that initial estate of oneness with God, in that estate of unknowing. This is about knowing. Why am I here? Isn't this what we all ask ourselves? You don't think that this is what God's mind also asks itself? I am. What am I? Well, this process is going to begin by this spirit, this seed that is going to burst open and create this universe, that there shall be a material substance from this unseen. So it's being actualized. The unseen spirit of life goes through these epochs of actualizations. We see how the righteous governance of God is as you sow, so shall you reap. Well, in the physical universe is where there is an action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. You see the parallel there. So this is the Adam and Eve. They are blaming women for all the troubles of the world because Eve eats of the apple. Do you understand now that Eve is the desire and passes it off to Adam, which is the creator nature, which actualizes the desire? That's what this is about. Then you have the second thing that builds women oppression, that you're not to lead the temple by the woman, but by the man. Well, this is about us. We are the temple. You are not to lead your temple by the feminine, meaning desire, but by the masculine, which is the creator nature, which is there to build the good. You are to honor the high priest, the one rabbi, that capstone, the Christ, and live this way, that one good way, the first law of God, doing no harm. That's what it means. It's not about literal women. We are the temple of the living God. This is all of our parts and pieces. The entirety of it, body, mind, and soul, the congregation of our temple are all of it, is all of it. From the mitochondria to the brain cells, the whole of it. Optical nerves. It's a wonder, this human body. This is the congregation of our temple. We do not lead it with desire. We lead it with creating those good desires. What good are your good desires if you're just praying all day, desiring? Get off your knees and actually build the safety and peace and demand it be governed over your life as you govern it over your own lives, and raise up that first law of God. So it's not about literal women. You can have your literal temples if you want them, but it doesn't matter if it's a literal man or a literal woman or a literal LGBT or trans or whomever you have running that church, that they are speaking this one law and exemplifying it and teaching it. Having patience and loving kindness for people who step off the way. We all step off the way. We are here to help others get back on, not demonize them or make it worse for them. And the last thing that they use to demonize women and men is this abomination. The feminine lying with the feminine, the female that lies with the female. This is not about gay women. This is about our living in desire. We are in our temple. We are living in desire, the feminine lying with the feminine. Fornicating with the feminine is desire lying with desire. Fornicating with desire. Knowing desire. Desire, desire, desire. Get off your ass and create it. It's fruitless. You see? It's not about gay women. If you're living in desire, you're producing no fruit because you're not creating those good desires. It's unclean. That's the feminine that lies with the feminine. Stop the LGBT gay hate bullshit. And the people at the top of LGBT and pride need to teach this to the world, because your leaders aren't going to, and they haven't for 2,000 years. And they use that abomination to justify this dogma that has led to the murder, the torture, the vicious killing of gay people, and the hatred. All right? You want it stopped? Look at the people who do not want a nonviolent healing. There are your fascists. They are rigid and stone-hearted. They don't want this first law. They don't want this healing. They want this us versus them. It's going to be their way. Most gays are not this way. I know this for a fact. Most humans are not this way. Same with BLM and Antifa. I have appealed to them. They are radicalized. You have these radical. Everybody's so radical and touchy. Well, shit, they don't want this first law. They want war. They want us versus them. They want self-glory. They want to make saints of themselves and martyrs and all the rest. Jeez. God. We martyr ourselves by pouring out the blood, not literal blood. We pour out the blood of this good spirit. That's the holy blood, the blood of the Christ that we are to fill our grail with. It's the one-way truth in life. It is to be running over. Our cups runneth over. We are the holy grail when our cups runneth over with the blood of the Christ. That is the first law of God, that we're living it and building it. These people up there are not holy grails. They're wolves in sheep's clothing. They're just shiny on the outside, but on the inside is filled with darkness and hypocrisy, not the blood of the Christ. So the abomination is the masculine lying with the masculine. It's not about men lying with men. It's that your creator nature is fornicating with your creator nature. You're just creating. But your creator nature is not married to, quote unquote, or bonded with that one good desire, the Virgin Mary desire that builds the Christ creations in the world, doing no harm. That's what the masculine line with the masculine is. It's not about gay people. There are fine gay men in this world and gay women in this world that would never think to do to another human what gets done to them. So I'm just saying, you will always have radical types in all types of groups that are going to be fascists. It's going to be their way. They'll deny the first law of God, but look at the bigger picture. Most people are not living this way, and they do want the healing. So the masculine that lies with the masculine is you're just producing no good fruit. You're creating. You're creating, but it's not married to that one good way. So your creations are fruitless under the all of the law of God, meaning you're producing no good fruit. Well, that makes sense. That's the abomination under God, is you're producing no good fruit. Look at these people up there. They are the abomination. They're the ones who have labeled gays the abomination. They're putting scapegoating it on you. They're lying about this scripture. I was called a heretic as a child. Look what they did to, really, those that were labeled heretics throughout the Inquisition, and the Non-Locksteppers, the Pagans, and also in the Nazi regime. The same thing. You must read Avro Manhattan. He was in the judgeship of the Knights of Malta, and his books are so wonderful, and they're free online, these PDFs. And he talks about the papacy ordering the German priests in Germany to order the laities to vote the Nazis into power, this little know-nothing Bavarian group. And we know Hitler was a Catholic. He never gets excommunicated. You have ex-Jesuit Alberto Rivera coming out and telling us that it's Father Stampfle that writes Mein Kampf, and the word Mein Kampf means my struggle. Well, in Scripture, the struggle, the conflict is called Israel, and it starts from the beginning, at that moment of the wanting to know that which the mind of God does not know. And it's the same with us. But in this process of this conflict, we are just not to do harm. That's what Scripture is instructing. Why is that so hard? So the my struggle, the Mein Kampf, or the quote-unquote my Israel, if you want to put it that way, well, there is no struggle if you're teaching the first law of God and raising it upon the world. That's the restoration of Israel. That's the spiritual restoration. A machine is only as good as its mechanic. I'm just saying, the world can be run differently. It's just never going to begin to start getting better for any of us. With the animal cruelty is not going to stop. None of this is going to end until it stops on the humans, because we are the minds of knowing. The first law of God is, in the end, do no harm, regardless of your sect or your race. Don't treat other people like lesser humans and mark them lesser, marking yourself greater, which is the mark of the beast. A literal mark does not exist but for the fact that there are people who are marking themselves greater and the rest of us lesser. Don't mark. They mark people in the Inquisitions. That you're a Jew. That you're a pagan. That you're a heretic. You're unclean. You're unholy. You're not a lockstepper. You're going to be culled and hurt, maybe killed and tortured. They did it in Nazi Germany with the badges, not just the Jewish people. The gays, the gypsies, the Roumanies. Look what they did to disabled people. So many others. Nobody up there is going to say these things. That the Jew is entirely about your character. Honoring the circumcision of the heart. That's what makes you the Jew, not the circumcision of the flesh. The Jew is that you're the one who exemplifies this good way, lives a world doing no harm, no matter how rich you are. I've been privileged enough to have dined in fine places and visited wonderful places in this world, Hong Kong, Bangkok, London, Paris, many places in this country, and worked installing computers all around the country in hotels. In so many states, I did over 25 installations, so I worked with people from Hawaii to Florida. Most people are just wonderful. They really are loving, wonderful people. You're always going to have people, but you don't know. It's like with guests in a hotel. If they come up to the front desk and they're a little bitchy or whatever's going on, you don't know what's going on. And there are times yourself when you've been on the edge or a little short-tempered, but you don't know. They might have lost someone in their life. Maybe they have an illness that they're in town to go to Cedars-Sinai for. You don't know. You don't know they're going through a divorce or whatever it is. So, in business at least, and if you're there to serve and protect famous people or non-famous people, it doesn't matter. You treat them with kindness and try to overcome their issues without implying in any way that they're unholy or stupid. You know, we can fix things otherwise. If it gets that rough, well, then you take a report and give it over to the day manager. Yeah. So we are the managers. It's not God, magic, Jesus that's going to come down and save us. We have that Jesus and God in us. We are the governors over our own lives. How do you want to be governed? So just remember this, that fascism, imperialism, Zionism, papism, Marxism, nationalism, socialism would all be good and true if they were built upon that first law of God, that there's only one anti, and that's anti-living this one way. Those that don't are the wolves in sheep's clothing. They are the fake God lovers. They can change. Let's give them the opportunity to change. Raise up the all of the law. That is the second coming. That is the stone that David cast to the mind of the Goliath. They will either change. That head will be cut off. Not literally. You don't want to hurt these people. It's the same thing. If it changes, then that old head has been cut off. You don't want to hurt them. Give them the opportunity to change. They were raised without the all of the law. This is the first law of God. It's what builds the safety, the salvation on earth, the heaven on earth, that we shall have it up there. As you sow, so shall you reap. God will not be mocked. Give them the opportunity to change. The world shall hear this. If they don't change, then they've convicted themselves and blamed themselves, and you get rid of them. You don't want to hurt them. You just want to put somebody in there who's going to honor this first law and undo the damage these people have been doing for 2,000 years and beyond, and what they're about to do. This Armageddon, this Third World War, all this Depop talk about power and control and what we're going through now, you want this to happen? This can stop. Do not look for a literal Jesus to magically come down after the ignition of a World War III, because if that gets ignited, then we've lost. Because they're playing a betting game. It's a smart-ass game. They're literalizing the book of Revelation so they can justify this literal Armageddon, and then they're going to say, well, where's your Jesus? Well, Jesus isn't going to come because Scripture is telling us it is finished. It is done. He was within us the whole time. We had the power to raise up the Jesus, the Christ, the all of the law, the second coming that is within us that we had brought upon the world so they could be seen by everybody. Make that unseen good seen. It's already living in us, not in them. They don't care. But you didn't do it before the ignition of that Armageddon. So now you're going to be slaves to a global new world order. How long is that going to last before people finally realize that the God and the Christ is within them? It's not magic and mystery, the building of peace. Because it's not magic and mystery, the building of war. We're the ones who have to take responsibility for it. Oh, then I'll end this with this. That night of the Oscars at the Beverly Hills Hotel. Those were 2 years when I was asked to do the swing shift when the Oscars was going on because the hotel is completely sold out. Now the hotel management owners have rented 2 of those huge lights that go straight up into the atmosphere, those beams. Anyway, so they've got 2 of those outside. They would roll in a television into the back office. I was the only person. There was a cashier that had to be out there always. But at the front desk, I was the one person, and I was also in the back office if there was any phone calls for reservations, whatever. But they would roll into TV, and they would let me order dinner from the Polo Lounge, come in on this beautiful tray with the double-coated silver dome and the little vase with the rose, and that's just beautiful. Who am I? But and I was instructed to watch because they would be coming back later. So that was part of my job. And that was one night, the year that Gandhi won. And so now they're all coming back into the hotel. All these famous people, and there are light bulbs, flash bulbs going out under the porte cochere as they're walking in on the red carpet. So all this media outside, but inside, I think there were 2 photographers that were allowed to be there. So Ben Kingsley comes in, and he's got his Oscar in his hand, and following him is Richard Attenborough, and he's got his Oscar in his hand, and Ben Kingsley asks if he had any messages, and I don't usually do this, I really don't, and I just couldn't help it. You get caught up in these things. And I said, well, good evening, Mr. Kingsley. I said, sir, would you mind? I said, if I could hold your Oscar, I'd like to just see how heavy it is. And somebody distracted him, and his head turned away for a moment. And just then, Richard Attenborough thrust his Oscar right into my hand. And I was holding it, and I said, wow, thank you, Mr. Attenborough. Yeah, this is heavy. And he says to me, it's a lot heavier than you think. Yeah. We're just all humans here. And the fine work these people have done. So I love you again, and you all take good care.